Welcome to our DLT Virtual Training Session 1 from State Support Team Region 8. This is Christine Farrell and Janelle Schuler, and this is a two-part series on leading the district leadership team, Session 1. Let's take a look at our learning intentions for this session. Today, we will clarify the purpose and the work of the DLT, learn about a problem-solving approach that the DLT can utilize, and consider how the DLT will conduct work, whether that is virtually, traditionally, or utilizing a hybrid approach. When we think about the district leadership team, the key word is leadership. Where do you see yourself as a leader? You were selected for this team and will play an important role on the district leadership team. There is a difference between leadership and membership. This is a shift for some teams because they may have operated out of the membership mindset. This work requires leadership, not membership. As you're thinking about empowering your team, one question that you may wish to consider is, what is the difference between leadership and membership, and does it matter? Membership includes privileges, but it doesn't require any responsibility. Districts need leaders on their teams, not members. At this time, pause the webinar and take a look at the 3 quotations on this slide. Which quote resonates with you as you think about your role as a leader on the DLT? What does being a leader and leadership in general mean to you? And then share your responses with your team and resume the webinar when you are ready. Knowing your why is imperative. Consider the following questions. What is your why for serving on the district leadership team? And then what is your district's why?
Let's talk about the purpose of the DLT. The DLT exists to improve instructional practice and student performance. There has definitely been a shift over the years to move away from the idea of district management to really focusing on measuring the progress of improving instructional practices through analyzing adult actions. What adult practices are being implemented effectively, and how does that translate into improving student performance? To measure the progress toward the goal, the DLT monitors the adult actions or cause data and student learning progress and effect data. This brings us to the question, so what, now what? If the purpose of leadership is to influence the work of the district to improve student outcomes, how do we do that? Especially now. We may be looking at the DLT working traditionally, virtually, or perhaps looking at a hybrid approach. One question to ask might be, is the work different, or is the delivery method different? If the delivery is different, what tools and resources do you need to utilize to get the work accomplished in your district? For example, in some virtual DLT meetings, you may wish to use breakout rooms for building level teams to discuss or review data, and then share out key points from the building discussions in the whole group session with the entire DLT. Another consideration might be, is everyone aware and comfortable with the tools, resources, and platforms that you're using or will be using in your meetings? If not, how will you train them, and what training considerations do you have to ensure effective collaboration? The purpose of the DLT is to improve instructional practice and student performance. In thinking ahead about how to improve throughout your district, you may have asked yourself, how do we begin? A continuous improvement cycle becomes the process for district and school core work and is used to implement, monitor, and evaluate their goals and strategic plan. If the purpose of the DLT is to improve instructional practice and student performance, then how does the DLT go about this? The work of the DLT includes determining if the implemented evidence-based strategies had the expected district outcomes, and monitoring and examining the implementation of adult practices and their impact on student performance, reflecting on successes to replicate and practices to improve, and making adjustments as needed. Here are some questions for your DLT to consider. Number 1, is your district improving now? If so, how and when do you know? If not, why not? How and when should you know? Number 2, what are the greatest challenges for your district teams right now? What support could the DLT provide to the BLTs to ensure that improvement occurs? Number 3, when reviewing your student performance data at the district level, where do you see significant improvement within the district? And how can you replicate those successes throughout the district? At this time, pause the webinar to discuss the question or questions that you have selected.
In Ohio, we've made very intentional shifts in the improvement process. As you serve as a leader on the district leadership team, leading the improvement work, supporting implementation is at the core of the improvement process. As you begin the journey of making improvement, step 1 is identifying critical needs. As you identify your critical needs, note there are various types of data to consider. The types of data reviewed and analyzed will be different based upon the team level. The data that you consider for the district leadership team will be different from the types of data reviewed by the building leadership team and the teacher-based teams. At the district level, you will focus on reviewing existing district or big picture data. You can begin by looking at adult data, student data, and perhaps some organizational data. Let's explore a potential scenario for a district leadership team. At each step along the way, we will continue to revisit this scenario. Here's some background information about the district. The DLT has identified a district academic goal of improving student performance through the implementation of evidence-based strategies. As we mentioned, step 1 is all about identifying critical needs. After examining and discussing district-wide data, the DLT has identified the need to improve comprehension levels throughout the district. Some data that were considered were item analyses from previous Ohio State tests, benchmark data, as well as district-level trend data.
Let's move on to step 2 of the Ohio improvement process, which is researching and selecting evidence-based strategies. After your DLT has determined your critical needs, your team will research strategies that will directly align to addressing your identified areas of concern. The role of the DLT in step 2, research and select evidence-based practices, is to ensure that the strategies selected address the prioritized critical needs identified by researching and selecting evidence-based district-level strategies that increase student achievement while minimizing the achievement gaps between student groups. In addition to selecting which strategy works best for your identified critical need, an additional consideration now may be which evidence-based instructional strategies work best in a virtual environment. When considering which evidence-based strategies to explore that would address your identified critical need, one resource that your DLT may wish to review is the Visible Learning work from John Hattie. This downloadable resource may be beneficial for your internal facilitator to explore and share with the DLT. Let's head back to our DLT scenario. As you recall in step 1, after examining district-wide data, the DLT has identified the need to improve comprehension levels throughout the district. So in step 2, to address the identified district need comprehension, the DLT has decided to focus on 3 evidence-based strategies. The DLT has selected reciprocal teaching with an effect size of 0.74, class discussion with an effect size of 0.82, and note-taking with an effect size of 0.59. The DLT will be supporting BLTs by providing an overview of the selected strategies. And at the end of the first quarter, the DLT will discuss and examine the impact of the strategies selected by analyzing common assessment data from each building.
As a DLT, you'll move on to step 3, planning for implementation. Planning for implementation is an important part of the process. Your DLT will not accomplish your goals without a plan on how to achieve them and clear communication to all stakeholders about the plan. So your DLT has identified your critical need, which may have happened as your district completed the one needs assessment, or perhaps your DLT has just started the improvement process and after analyzing the big picture data has identified your critical need. It is now time then to develop your district level plan. Here is what you will want to consider as you develop your plan. Remember, your plan should be aligned to your identified critical needs. As you plan for implementation, consider the following. Have you selected a limited number of SMART goals? What evidence-based strategies are you considering to help you achieve your goals? How will you progress monitor the implementation to ensure student success? And lastly, what action steps are required of the team to ensure successful outcomes for students? And is the plan being implemented with fidelity? You may also need to consider the specific steps or adult actions in the strategy. Specifically, what will all adults agree to do? You'll need to determine any professional learning needs as well, considering traditional and virtual environments. Let's take a look back at our scenario. Remember, in step 2, to address the identified need of comprehension, the DLT decided to focus on 3 evidence-based strategies. Those would be reciprocal teaching, class discussion, and note-taking. The DLT will be supporting BLTs by providing an overview of the selected strategies, and at the end of the first quarter, the DLT will discuss and examine the impact of the strategies selected by analyzing common assessment data from each building. So in step 3, here is the plan that the DLT created. What we will do is provide mini PD sessions on reciprocal teaching, class discussion, and note-taking. When will we do it? Professional development sessions during the August District Improvement Day, with BLTs following up with their buildings during September staff meetings. How will we do this? We will share the virtual session through Google Classroom, and based on a guide from the DLT, members of the BLT will provide clarity of the strategy through an overview document, video examples, and modeling. And how will we monitor this? DLT will review the BLT feedback from the mini PD sessions and will provide ongoing feedback to BLTs regarding the evidence-based strategies. We will also create a look-for document for administrators to use during walkthroughs with no names attached. When will we do this? During our September DLT meeting. How will we do it? Create a Google folder with look-fors of strategies for all staff members. And how will we monitor this? Administrators will gather evidence of strategy implementation during walkthroughs, and BLTs will bring data to monthly DLT meetings. This is just an example of one possible way that a DLT could develop the steps in the plan for implementation.
Based on the information presented in this webinar, what do you want to remember as your district leadership team plans for this year? What are the key takeaways for your team, and what are your next steps? At this time, pause the webinar and discuss these questions with your team members. As we wrap up session 1, let's revisit our learning intentions. We clarified the purpose and the work of the DLT. We learned about the problem-solving approach that the DLT could utilize, and we considered how the DLT could conduct its work, whether that be virtually, traditionally, or using a hybrid approach. Thank you for joining us in session 1 and for continuing the conversation in supporting the work at the district level. Please join us for the next DLT Virtual Training Session 2, where we will explore the importance of implementation and monitoring and reflecting upon practices to improve student performance data at the district level. The DLT Virtual Training Session 2 is now available at the SST8 YouTube channel. As always, we are here to support your work. Remember, support is our middle name. To find out more about State Support Team's many offerings and opportunities, follow us on Twitter at OhioSST8 or check out our website at www.sst8.org.